Well, good afternoon, Rip City. 3 o'clock here on another beautiful summer day. Plenty of sports to get to because it was a wild weekend. If you're a fan of, just about anything, sometimes good, sometimes bad. First off, Oregon goes into Northwestern and they grab an impressive victory start to finish, 34-14 over the Wildcats. But despite the win, they still fell 2 spots to number 6 in the latest AP poll. For your Oregon State Beavers, it might get worse before it gets better. They went down to Texas Tech, and after about a 10-day lightning delay, they dropped one 45-14, and now they get to take on the Ducks this weekend, hoping to not fall to 0-4. And some unfortunate injury news in the NFL. Joe Burrow has turf toe, which is a lot worse than it sounds. He might be out for a few months as he is going to require surgery. The Rip City Drive, 3 hours of sports talk, starts next. Well, good afternoon, Rip City. Chris Burkhardt here with you today, filling in for Chad Doing. You can follow me over on social media at Chris J. Burkhardt. Excited today to have my partner on the other side of the glass, Brendan Slaughter. B_slot is the name on social. Should make sure you're following him for all the latest on the Oregon State Beavers, because let me tell you what, when the going is good, the articles write themselves. But guess what? When the going's bad, the articles kind of write themselves too. So you better be over there over at Beaver's Edge getting all your content, because I'm sure Brendan is churning out some stuff for you, because there is some tough times in Corvallis right now, and we will get to that throughout the day because, man, they are looking at possibly going an 0-4 to start the season this weekend. I think the Houston team on the horizon's real tough too. You start this bad boy 0-5, that's dropping 11 of your last 12, and that is not good. And Bill Oram did drop an article about them today. And Trent Bray, that seat is probably ash at this point. Like, he might not want to sit down yet. He might not want to work on those wall squats, get those hammies and those quads built up, because the hot seat is on fire right now. And we'll talk about that throughout the day. Of course, there's plenty of NFL action as well. And some injuries that are going to hurt some teams moving forward. Hopefully, they get back on the field sooner rather than later. Joe Burrow with turf toe, which is so interesting. Like, turf toe, like, I feel it's like when someone like is out with like a contusion. You're like, there's a fancy word for a bruise. Like, oh, you can't play because you have a bruise. Like, I feel like turf toe needs a rebrand, right? Because like he has a grade 3 turf toe injury, which means like the ligament is like completely tore down there, and he's going to have surgery for it. But like, call it some sort of ligament tear, make it sound worse. Like, turf toe. Like, I would make something up. Like, how come you're not playing? I got in a fight with a bear last night, and I scared him, but in the midst of him running away, 800 pounds of force stepped right down on my big toe, shattered it. I'm out for a little bit. No, I just got turf toe.
Is there, again, purely speaking to a non-medical professional here, Chris, is there no chance you can play through that? I again, not a football player, never played through turf toe, but can you not? Especially if you're like Joe Burrow and you have such expectations on this season and everything else.
So for those of you wondering, turf toe, that ligament, it's all right there, basically like on the ball of the foot, right where the toes connect. Which, if you're a quarterback, especially, or it happens with running backs a lot, when you put all that force into your foot to throw that ball, it is going to send a sharp pain up that leg, man, and it's not going to be good at all. So turf toe, though, is just a really weird injury to just throw out there. Like, oh no, I got turf toe.
But you said grade 3, so the worst you could possibly.
It is the worst.
Ooh.
He's gonna require surgery, out for 3 months. So now former, UW star Jake Browning taking over there in Cincinnati. That hurts my Jamar Chase with the number 1 overall pick in my fantasy draft. We'll see where that goes. And we're going to talk about football today because, of course, it's football season, baby. It's the best time to be a sports fan. But basketball is just around the corner as well. The Blazers' first preseason game just a few weeks away, October 8th. They're going to start that slate. Media Day is about 2 weeks from today. And guess what? They're starting to ramp up. You have the Rip City Rally going on. On Friday, the Rip City Rally is going to make a stop in Chad Dewing's favorite part of town, Gresham, which, that's where I was born and raised. So watch your lip there, Mr. Dewing. But Chad's going to be out there. RipCityDrive live at the Rip City Rally on Friday. And then on Sunday, I know this one's going to be a pretty big one, but the Blazers are holding a rally down at Pioneer Courthouse Square, a reunion of sorts, welcoming Damian Lillard back to Rip City, doing a little Q&A with some fans and some representatives of the franchise, getting everyone hyped for the season. So you're going to want to be down there as well, get a first chance, to see Dame, get excited, and just understand that the Blazer season's right around the corner. That's pretty cool, if you ask me, because I enjoy basketball just like all you do. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty, Brendan, I asked you earlier if you're still playing that college football game that we like to talk about here. You're laughing. You're like, yeah, it gets me through these tough times right now.
It does. I mean, it's like forever, Chris. I remember being a kid and having, again, I'll say forever, like NCAA 06, 07, 08, those were like my jams, man. And I can remember as a kid be like, oh, playing a game after getting back from watching a Beaver game or anything else. So like all those years, like Chris, we were talking about, I'm sure we'll get into it later. We were talking about how painful the 2017 season was for Oregon State fans, Gary Anderson, all that. I didn't have college football to play then, Chris. So it is a little nicer to have something to bounce off that frustration with because, yeah, it's been a rough couple weeks.
You're out there. You're like, I don't understand what the issue is because I'm making Malik Murphy look like $1 million. I had 750 yards passing and 10 touchdowns last week. Like,
you can also successfully snap in NCAA football. So I think next year, Chris, if I were to guess, how they make it really hard to kick? I think next year they're going to be like, because of Oregon State, let's have to do the thing where you have to aim it to snap too. I'm joking, of course.
No, you have the throw meter. You need to have a snap
meter, right? Because it's like you gotta get that hard aspect of the game too.
Yeah, you gotta.
I digress. But
it is funny because I was just telling you, I am in one football league with a couple of Blazer fans that contacted me last year. They watched the 5th quarter and game day and listened to the Rip City Drive and come play with us. We did, and I was in for a rude awakening because they were playing on Heisman, sliders turned up. It was Mad Max out there, and I did pretty good with the old Houston Cougars. But now we're in 26. I can be Hawaii and enjoy it because Hawaii's not broken like they used to be. I still do pretty good on that Heisman mode. But then another friend of mine invited me into his dynasty, and they don't play on the hardest setting. They play. They're a cupcake league, and
truth be told, I prefer All-American too, Chris.
They're not ready for this. They're not ready for this. So I came in, they were winning those games. I saw 2 of them lost. I'm like, how do you lose the computer? What are you doing? And then you won 28-25. That's embarrassing. So I come in, I jump on Air Force because I have to jump in on a bad team in a conference that nobody's in. I win my first game 72-14. It's over. Now I jumped in midway through the season, so Air Force already has 4 losses, so I ain't gonna make the playoffs or anything, but they're on notice. They're on notice. We need to get you on a dynasty. I need to play you.
I know we probably do. We've been saying forever that I need to, and then we just never have put pen to paper. But yes, we probably need to make that happen.
Yeah, it can just be a just 2 radio guys dynasty.
we can go through it
at our leisure. But no, that game's so fun. Chad gets jazzed about it. He got it for his birthday. He was so hyped.
So yeah, because obviously I didn't get a chance to talk to him. When he went down to Disney, I didn't connect 2 and 2 because I was like, oh, his birthday. He was finally getting the game. But dude. Chris, how many times we think he's played with Arizona State?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we know Chad's squad, man.
You should have heard him. He's telling a story about how he got the present from his mom or whatever, and they had the code on the receipt to redeem the game, but without thinking, the receipt got thrown away, and so he had to call Target customer service and
Oh,
just get the
no.
workaround multiple times to actually get the code that was on the receipt.
At least he finally got it, because that sounds like a headache and a half right there.
That'd be demoralizing. Like, you got the game, but guess what? You can't play it. Sorry, little Chad. Little Chad is weeping. Like, he was not happy about it. But he got to play. He likes it. We like it. And the Beavers look good in that game, because guess what? They don't look good in real life right now. And Brendan and I are going to jump real heavy into Oregon State here today. We're going to jump into it here on the next segment, because, man, this thing, the vibes are not good. The product is not good. It's just, I don't know how you fix it. I absolutely don't know how you fix it. And I do think you could sit here and you could talk about the conference realignment and what the other 10 Pac-12 teams did. And that is just finding the excuse board and putting a pin in the excuse. There is a lot here that we could talk about. Brendan knows far more than I do, because of, how well connected he is and how much he has covered that team just nonstop. But there's a lot here that I feel like Oregon State doesn't want to admit is just self-inflicted as well. Sometimes you can't get out of your own way, and it's unfortunate to watch, man, especially as a fan here in the Northwest. Yes, I'm a Duck fan. Y'all know I'm a Duck. That's where I went to school. I love Eugene. I love the University of Oregon. But at the same time, like, I don't want to see, your rival up I-5 be this bad. Like I said, my favorite memories as a Duck are like Civil War for the Roses. That's like, where you were sitting in Autzen Stadium at that moment when Jeremiah Mazzoli ran that fourth down play and boom, plows through a guy, spins around him. Like, those games were fun. When you had Oregon and Oregon State matching up as two of the top teams in the conference, and winner goes to the Rose Bowl, all the marbles. I don't like the game being in September. That's dumb. I like the Civil War is supposed to be, cold, rainy, maybe snowy, right? But when there's something on the line, there's just something fun about it. Like, this is weird. It's weird because the game is this weekend, and it is just feels like it is just a foregone conclusion that, Novosad and Luke Moga are going to get playing time and run through Oregon State.
And, to that extent, Chris, maybe it's a good thing these schools are not going to play each other next year. Maybe it's a good thing that Oregon State needs to figure some things out. I mean, dare I say, a rivalry is only a rivalry as competitive as it is. And I'll give Oregon State. It was one of the greatest comebacks in the series when they won in 2022 and the comeback and all that. But then you look at the two games since, pretty rough. So, I think a good rivalry, there has to be some back and forth. And I know Oregon State won in 20. I know they won in 22. But, 20 was a weird COVID year. 22 was legit. But still, like, Chris, only, I think, 28,000 people got to see it because it was a half-complete Reser Stadium. Right? So it's felt a little odd the last couple years. And this year, I'm not saying that I came in. I mean, you remember, Chris, you and I talked about it. I didn't come in here and say, hey, I expect this Oregon State team to be playoff busters. But I kind of looked at you and I'm like, I'd be surprised if they didn't win 7-8 games. Like, I really thought they had that in them this year. And everything that I said makes me kind of look like I have egg on my face now. But I think it's deeper than just the talent that's there, Chris. I think it's something between the ears that's not getting figured out on Saturdays.
Yeah, no, it's how quickly the narrative can change, man, because you're right. You go from this team's going to win 6 games, 7 games maybe. I see them getting into the postseason. They're building something to – it takes, 2 games in basically, and you're like, they're going to be lucky to sniff 5. Let alone 6. Like, it's tough going, man.
And that's all you wanted, Chris. Like, I not to put your expectations low, but 5 wins last year. You showed something good in your final game against Washington State. But then from then on, you're sitting there and you're like, okay, like you were telling me, you've kind of had a losing streak going back to last season. There's not a lot of momentum. Like, you need it, and you paid. Here's the big one: you paid $1.5 million for Malik Murphy. You're telling me he's not any more wins better than Ben Gulbranson, Giovanni McCoy last year? So in some ways, Chris, I almost feel like they even had a more cohesive team at times last year because they started the year 4-1.
Hey, man.
So it's just crazy.
I'll tell you this on paper. He is Malik Murphy. He's better than Gulbranson. He's better than what you're rolling out with him. I mean, I think he's probably better than the version of DJ Uiagalelei that you had. He's not a bad quarterback, but there's just a lot that's not working.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to dive into that here in the next segment. If you want to join the conversation with us, 503-248-0620 is the telephone number. Of course, you go to youtube.com as well type in Rip City Radio. You can join the conversation there. I'm gonna be pubbing it a lot here. Just a reminder, big time events going on. The Rip City Rally traveling around the state. Chad will be live at the Gresham location on Friday to get the chance to see all the Blazer fans down there and have a little fun. I'm going to try to make it down there too so we can do some YouTube, live on location. And then, of course, on Sunday, the reunion down at Pioneer Courthouse Square. Chance to say welcome back to Damian Lillard and get hyped for the upcoming season because it's going to be a fun one. This is the Rip City Drive. Chris Burkhardt here with you, joined by Brendan Slaughter on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio, 620. Welcome back into the Rip City Drive, where Chris is getting impromptu Google Maps lessons from Mike calling in during the break, telling me, hey, he's talking to Brendan. Brendan had to be the messenger. And Brendan's like, don't shoot the messenger. I said, no, you're a good guy. But he's like, hey, you tell Burkhardt that Corvallis isn't up I-5. You go up 99 and to the left. Well, Mike, I just want to let you know, like, you could also go from Eugene to Florence up to Newport. Then you could go east to Corvallis. Or you could go up I-5 like every other human being, Mike. Actually, what you do is you get on I-5, you go up for a few minutes, then you turn left, you pass the Chevron and a Subway there, and you just drive on that freeway for a little bit till you see the grass seed plant to the south of you. Then you end up passing the Bigfoot billboard, right? You're like, what? That's weird. Where the heck did that come from? Then you see Tristing Tree Golf Course, which is a mighty fine golf course, by the way. And then you got two options once you see Tristing Tree. You can either keep heading west through downtown, hit campus, get to Reeser Stadium, or you can take a left at the light, loop around a little bit, go past the track facility. Yeah, it's right there. You might see some dorms along the way, the softball stadium, the soccer stadium, and then boom, Reeser Stadium pops out of nowhere. Mike, thank you for keeping me honest, by the way. I love it. It's great. But hey, up I-5 is just the same, all right? Like, if I really wanted you to get there, you got to give directions like, okay, you go north for about 5 minutes. When you see the McDonald's, you're getting close, right? That's what you have to do. But I like that I'm getting outed for being directionally inefficient, apparently. I know where I'm going. I got, as my wife says, I got that iron deposit in my nose. I know where north is. I can figure this thing out. Brendan is like cackling in there. I can about hear him through the glass. But no, that's I like that, Mike. You made me laugh. You absolutely made me laugh. I think it's funny. Everybody's having a good time.
I'll say this, Chris. In all my years of going south, I again, I guess it's each to their own. Just by necessity, I think I've only taken, I call it the back way to go 99 as opposed to the front way, which you would assume is I-5, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, if one's the back way, then one's the front way. And, you know as well as I, Chris, your boy can be a little aggressive sometimes. Sometimes I like to get places fast. And it's a little harder to get places fast on them back roads.
Hey. It is a little bit, and I just want to point out, too, if you just type in Autzen Stadium to Reeser Stadium, the first direction it does suggest is going up I-5. All right? Now, taking 99, that's an alternate route, right? You might do that, but you're not going to save any time. I think I've only done the Corvallis to Eugene on the back route, right, one time, and the only bad part about that, man, is unless you are you're from Junction City or something and you're used to taking that area. Oh, boy. Those roads are a little dark for my nighttime eyes, man.
Totally. I mean, Chris, as well as I, I'm sure you've worked a few 7:30 Oregon games, and I'll be honest, like, if I'm driving home, like, I want the most lit way home at 2 o'clock in the morning. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Like, even if you go up to, through Albany, like, that can get kind of dark sometimes. Like, I took my dad to a 49er game in the Bay, and we listened to MapQuest. And my buddy was in Sacramento, and that's where we were staying. So we were trying to get back to Sacramento. I've only driven from Sacramento to San Francisco like twice. It's late at night, and it took me through the back roads, man. I was in farm country in little tiny towns. I had no idea where I was. Got a little hairy, man. I didn't think I was going to make it to Sacktown. So maybe got to stop, grab some wine or something. We're in the middle of Wine Valley, right? Wine country. If you're trying to get to Reeser Stadium and you're taking the 5, if you get to Willamette Valley Vineyards, you went too far, Mike. You went too far. Anyway, I love that call, Brendan. I think that's hilarious. Makes my day. Like I said, we're just here having a good time. But unfortunately, Brendan, it's time to pump the brakes on fun for a second. Because as I told you, things at Oregon State are not good right now. They are pretty bad. And I told you before we were the start of the show, and you and I were, going through our pregame prepping here, that like this is, and keep in mind that for those of you who think I'm just the duck honk over here, Brendan knows this because that's when he started kind of interning back then. Like, I was our insider for the Beavers basically at NBC from 2014 until 2020 when COVID hit. I was at those Reser Stadium games. I made it to a few practices, and it wasn't like Brendan, who's in the trenches full time, but I knew what was going on. And like I told Brendan, right now the vibes feel so bad. It reminds me when you're right on the brink, and it reminds me of the end of the Gary Anderson tenure, when that was by far the lowest I had ever felt from that organization. Because the weird part was, like, when Mike Riley was there and they had their down years still, right? The vibes were never bad because Mike Riley had a very firm grasp on what he wanted. Those players had a firm grasp on what they wanted. Like I said, some of those guys on those late Mike Riley teams were some of the nicest football players I'd ever talked to this day. Like, shout out Michael Doctor. That guy was phenomenal. So kind with his time. Such a great guy to talk to. Sean Mannion, right? Like, these guys were wonderful. And then when Gary Anderson came in, some of those guys who were wonderful became not so wonderful because the vibes were just so bad. And it wasn't like they were mean. It was like you could tell that things were just off, Brendan. Things were just off. Things were getting rough. And sometimes your coach, it's more than just your X's and your O's. It's the ability to get you through those tough times as a unit, right?
I mean, it's eerily similar, Chris, in this sense. 2016, very much like this last year. So this last year, right, Oregon State was literally rolling downhill in the worst way. They beat a ranked Washington State team at home at senior day of the final game of the year, or excuse me, their final home game of the year. Mm-hmm. And that got them win number 5. It really stopped the ball rolling. I think it was key to getting guys like Trent Walker and some of the other guys who could have, maybe Anthony Hankerson, could have taken off to stay. But Chris, the more and more I think about it, it's almost looking to me like fool's gold, the way that Gary Anderson and every single Oregon State player hyped up the 2016 Oregon win. Because Oregon State beat Oregon in 2016, broke the streak. I think it was 7 or 8 years. Mark Helfrich got shown the door after that. Whether or not Oregon wanted that win, wanted to be there, that's very much up for debate. But, signature moment for Ryan Nall, signature moment for Gary Anderson. They have all that momentum going into 2017, Chris. Very much like what
was the quote? Go Beavs, how about that? Or
yeah.
something like that. Like,
it's true. Gosh. Oh, Gary. Shiver down the spine. But nevertheless, you think about this year, Malik Murphy, the expectations. I'm not saying I expected Oregon State to be here 3-0, but at the very minimum, Chris, I expect them to be 1-2. At the very minimum.
Right.
And here you are 0-3, looking all sorts of just awful in how you get there. You don't look like a cohesive team. You continually make procedural mistakes. I don't know. I'm not ready to, boldly declare that Oregon State needs to make a move, but in my opinion, Trent Bray's coaching for his job these next couple weeks. Like, you're not going to say that against Oregon because the result's not going to change. I didn't have it as a win before the season. It ain't going to be a win now. But if you get to like 0-5, 0-6 territory, and then, I just don't know how much you can put up with that, Chris. Like, football is still a results-based business. I know there's contracts and buyouts and all these things. But, man, just from what I've seen from my perspective, a lot of the fan base is Oregon State fans, Chris, can handle losing. They've done, like I said, I shout out my grandpa who sat through, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. And they're like, we would still be there supporting them. It's the lack of like things that are just like silly mistakes, like not being able to snap the ball, not being able to not have false start penalties. I think Beaver fans could take it if their team was just overmatched and didn't have a chance against a really good team. It's the silly mistakes and the amount of times we've said that now over 3 weeks. That's just, it comes back to coaching.
It does. And you look at what happened way down I-5. I don't know all the back roads how to get to Pasadena, but I do know if you never turn off I-5, you'll get there. Okay. And you look at what happened down there at UCLA. I mean, they just cut ties with their Trent Bray, right?
It's
the
true.
Former player, great ties to the university, but they started this season 0-3 and are not looking good. And what happens? They cut ties, and sometimes you have to do that. And so, yeah, it's rough. The situation, though, is not good. And I want to play some audio here because Bill Oram of the Oregonian and Oregon Live just wrote an article. Head out to Oregon Live and read it, where basically he's just saying like that Oregon State can control how they fix this, and they need to fire Trent Bray. Might sound a little harsh, but maybe this thing's not going to work out. And this was the line of questioning, and this was Trent Bray's response just the other day with coach, or at the last media availability with Bill Oram.
Do you believe you're still the right person to lead this program?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I think for the same reason why I took it over. That's love this place, love this program. I think we got good coaches. We got good players. We got to continue to get better and continue to, get the best out of these guys.
When you look at the fact that you guys are at risk of having lost 10 of your last 11 games over the 2 seasons, you're talking about effort. There have been, preparedness issues with false starts and the 12-man penalty, and the defense looks like it's taken a step back. How do you reconcile that with what you're talking about with the direction of the program?
Yeah, the penalties are something that's got to get cleaned up. I don't look at what happened on Saturday and judge the whole, when you talk about the defense, because in the first 2 games they were much better than they'd been the year before. So I don't let one game encapsulate who we are.
Why did you choose to stick with Jamie Christian after the Fresno State game and not make?
Well, it's never a good idea to make changes second game of the season. When you talk about who's leading your staff, all those things, it's just not a good idea.
Last one for me. Do you like being a head coach?
Next question.
The next question, the dreaded next question. But Brendan, bringing you back in here for a second, because again, you're our Beaver guy, but I get the line of questioning. There's going to be a fair amount of Beaver fans who probably don't like it, think it was a little bit harsh, but sometimes you got to be the guy who goes in there and asks that tough question. But nothing about those responses really instill a lot of confidence in me.
No, I mean,
did it when he said, "Oh yeah, because I'm the because same as when I got this job and blah blah." Did any of that sound like a guy that's confident moving forward?
No, it doesn't even sound like a guy who's got all the answers, or even. I mean, it. I really don't want to put this out there, but I've been telling my coworker Ryan Harlan at BeaversEdge.com. We're at the forefront of all this, and I said, the way that this, and particularly Bray, his style filters down, the way that the media have kind of been talked to this year by Bray, it's eerily reminiscent of how Gary Anderson talked to us at the end. Now, again, that's just my opinion. I've said, I've had former players on my podcast and this, that, Chris, that have said, Trent Bray is not Gary Anderson. It is different. It is. I don't want to lump it.
Well, I'll tell you this. You can compare the vibes, but you cannot compare the coaches. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
You give me a team in a vacuum. You tell me you want Trent Bray or Gary Anderson. I'm taking Trent Bray 11 out of 10 times.
Totally. But at the same token, like you said, the vibes, the fact that, after week 2, after the Fresno State loss, your best edge rusher, Nico Taylor, comes into the press conference. Looks like he's pretty peeved, and one of his things is like, well, gee, I sure would like to rush the passer more. And you're just like how you those are cracks, right? Those are cracks. That's not, I think back to, all the great analogy in sports, Chris, where it's like the best teams, they're wound so tight like a ball of yarn, you can never find the end of the string. But when teams are not tight, they're not cohesive, you just start pulling on that string,
right?
And you see things come apart. And I said this: I don't think, and I've learned this myself. I don't think Trent Bray likes presser type engagements. He's much more, and I've had this too. He's much more comfortable in a one-on-one setting. I've had great one-on-one interviews with him, and I think he's a great guy.
Right.
Now that being said, it doesn't inspire confidence that when someone lobs you a question like, do you want to be a head coach? If it means something to you, go, absolutely. It hasn't worked our way, but this is still my dream, right? You could say any number of things.
It is so easy.
But to go next question? Oh, Trent Bray, you're not Bill Belichick.
Yeah. Hey, do you like being a head coach? It is so easy to remove all doubt and be like, Bill, I love being a head coach.
Right.
I love this program. I love being at Oregon State. I love going to battle every Saturday. I don't love the result. The result stinks. But I have not wavered in my love for this program and love for what I do. Man, you just gave everybody a soundbite. You gave Oregon State fan a soundbite too. You're sitting there. That's okay. Oregon. I'm gonna let the Oregon game slide because I've watched Oregon. They've been playing so well. But Houston and App State, I'm going to give them a chance to show me something. And right now you're like, next question. Come on, man. Give me something to latch on to. Give me something to get hyped about.
It's just, I think it's, it's just not the best look. Again, could one of the big questions we have, Chris, is, Oregon State's 0-4. Would it constitute a salvageable season if somehow they're able to take advantage of their back half and go 6-6, right? That's one of the big questions we're asking ourselves right now. And I think, with some of the opponents on the back half, you need to win a 50-50 game or two, but it's not impossible. You will not play two tougher teams than you played this last week and this week. Like, that's just reality. Now, that being said, I don't know. If they did go 6-6, Chris, I think it's a good question. I think it's barely enough, but if you are worse than last year, you don't even get to 5 wins. That, again, Chris, let's just look at this way. Like, you and I sometimes are in a results-based business too here on the radio with things like football is if it's no different than a sales job. If you're not cutting the mustard, they're not going to be like, yeah, we'll keep you on payroll, man. And life is a business, Chris.
I'll contend too, Brendan, like with Trent Bray, like nobody wants to win more than him. Like, it's not like if he's mailing it in, there's a job on the line. He wants to have that job, right? And head coaching jobs are not easy to come by.
And I'll say this too. Trent Bray loves Oregon State. This is not like you're talking about someone whose dad was the DC, during the great years of the early 2000s, played there, coached there. I don't know that Gary Anderson loved Oregon State or loved Corvallis. It didn't mean as much to him as it does Trent Bray. So again, I'm not saying that it doesn't, he doesn't love it. I think Trent Bray loves it I think he might have a beaver tattoo on him, Chris. Like, I'm joking, but that's how much it means to him. And I think we're seeing right now, he is kind of at a loss. And what has maybe worked for him in the past isn't quite working to get this engine back on track. And I don't know what again, I threw out, you should have fired your special teams coach after week 2. Maybe that, ends up, kickstarting some things, or maybe make a personnel change. You got to do something to show you're in control. That's my thing, and we haven't seen that.
Well, it's like, wasn't the Giants game over the weekend? They had one guy commit 4 offensive fouls, offensive linemen. They took him out. Wasn't happy about it, but sometimes you got to do these things, man. And it's going to be a talking point until there's a resolution, whether that is someone coming out and just saying, yep, we got faith in it, or you cut ties with it. There's one thing you and I talk about too. It's like, not only is he out there forward facing and answering those questions from Bill Oram, but it's real easy for an athletic director to just go hide in his office and not say anything either way. Right. No, and so you got to figure something out here, man, because this thing is, the seas are rough, the ship is rudderless, and you are at,
we might be taking on some water too, Chris.
You're taking on water.
The pumps are going.
Yeah, the Flying Dutchman's coming up behind you.
We haven't called the Coast Guard yet, but we're like, hey, the pumps are working, but we're not feeling so great.
Now, if you did fire him, who could take over? We'll talk about that throughout the show. We also get to get to some Duck Talk, because if I got to sit through Beaver Talk, I got to make Brendan sit through
It's very
Duck Talk.
true.
It's going to happen. Plenty of other college football news and NFL, man. That's the fun part about Mondays. Nothing but football to talk about, baby. And you're going to hear it all right here on your home, the Blazers, even though that's basketball. That's right. We do everything here. Rip City Radio, 620. Brendan going with the Disturbed today. I like it. These are good intro songs. Doesn't always have to be Metallica all the time with Burkhardt in house. Just pick us some good tunes, and we'll have some fun. Now, hey, we've been talking a lot of Oregon State football, and we'll get to more of that throughout the show. I want to get to Oregon's impressive performance in Northwestern, but a couple other things going around in college football as well. You had updated AP polls come out, and they said that Oregon, even though you won, you're going to fall 2 spots. That's just how the cookie crumbles, right? Not a lot of controversy this week, though, with people not voting UCF in, man. But college football is fun because let me tell you right now, the top. I feel like it's anybody's ball game. You want to look at the Big Ten is definitely standing out, but right now you got Ohio State, Penn State going 1-2. That game here coming up, Penn State, Oregon in Happy Valley. Oh boy, that is going to be a barn burner of a game. There's pretty much guaranteed. I think game day is going to be there for that one. Of course, they're making some really dumb choices. Game day is because what aren't they going to? They're going to Miami versus Florida this week, despite the fact you have a top 25 matchup in Texas Tech at Utah, which I think would be a great spot for game day. But that's neither here nor there. LSU coming in at number 3, representing the SEC. They're looking really good. Then you get a little bit of movement, right? Miami jumps up to 4, Georgia to 5, Oregon falls to number 6. LSU was getting blasted because, they're number 3, and their defense looks like a national championship defense. That offense can't move the ball. They are struggling to get anything done there. But you know what? They won. They scored more points than the other team. That's what you need to do. Florida State jumps up to number 7. Despite the fact they've only played 2 games, people are getting in on that. They like what they see from the Seminoles. Texas drops to number 8. I think they're an interesting one right now because I've told a lot of you guys as we talk that I'm not an Arch Manning believer. Like, I do think that the ceiling is as high as can be, but I just didn't like all the hype he was getting. Oh, this guy's a Heisman frontrunner and potential number 1 overall pick, despite the fact that we hadn't seen him play an actual real life down. Yeah, we saw him play garbage time, but those aren't real life downs. But he has not looked good. Texas is 2-1. Obviously, that one loss being to Ohio State to start the season. Illinois is just taking care of business, done what they need to do, sitting there at number 9, and then Texas Tech sitting at 10 after grabbing a big win over Notre Dame. Notre Dame does fall to number 24, and I think I saw a thing like one of the first, if not the first team, start the year 0-2 and still stay in the top 25. Granted, those 2 losses were against some very, very good teams. USC cracks the top 25. Texas Tech, who put the beat down on Oregon State this weekend, they are jumping up to number 17. Again, they get to play Utah. So you got number 17 Texas Tech versus number 16 Utah this weekend at Utah. That's going to be a heck of a game. Tennessee drops a heartbreaker to Georgia, but that was probably the game of the week. That thing was phenomenal, as I contend. I think college football is better when Tennessee is good. I like Tennessee. Tennessee is easy to root for. And Rocky Top, all that stuff. I really want to get to a game there. That's a bucket list stadium. As a bucket list stadium I would love to get to. But that's kind of your AP poll, how things are shaking out. I don't know if we've really got to the point yet where we can start to pull this thing apart and see that who's the pretenders and who's the real teams, right? Who's a contender. Like, I think the top end, we all know that Ohio State's a contender, Penn State's a contender. And when I say contender, I'm thinking like this is a legit threat to make it. And if they're in the college football playoff, they're making noise, right? LSU, Miami, Georgia, Oregon, all there. Florida State, I think the jury's still out on, right? Good way to start the season. But are you truly back, or are you, when's the carpet going to get pulled out from under you, right? Illinois, kind of the same thing. Easy start to the season, but are you better than Oregon and Ohio State and Penn State? Are you better than Michigan? I don't know. So that one. Texas A&M, I think if they're in the playoff, they got a chance to make noise. Same with Oklahoma. Then you start to see that drop off a little bit. How good is Ole Miss? They're 3-0. How good is Iowa State? They're 4-0. Are they pretenders? Are they not? Like, we still got a lot to shake out because you can go down that entire list of the AP poll. And you got Georgia Tech in there at 3-0. I think most people would say conventional wisdom says they're a pretender, but you just don't know. They've looked impressive, right? Indiana gets out to a good start, 3-0. But again, now they got Illinois coming up. So some of these teams who don't have those blemishes are going to get them. Vanderbilt's taking care of business, right? Diego Pavia fever. You see, Theo Vaughn's got to try to get a date with his mom. It was like, yeah, if Vanderbilt beats South Carolina, Theo Vaughn convinced Diego Pavia to get a date with his mom. Like, that's just funny. College football's great, right? And then outside of the top 20, and you got Michigan, Auburn, Missouri, Notre Dame, USC. Other receiving votes, BYU right there at 26, which is a team that I was just talking about off air with my guy Brendan, because I'm like, man, you know who I would trust fully to right the ship and at least get it through at Oregon State is probably one of my favorite coaches in all of college football right now, and that's Kalani Sitake. I absolutely love that man. Super, super smart football mind.
I think BYU loves him too.
What?
I said I think BYU loves him too.
I think they do too. I also do have a soft spot for, a little Pauly pride, right? You see an Islander do well, I get excited. I get excited. Not gonna lie. But gosh, he's just a fun coach. And you consider everything that works against BYU and he still gets it done.
Yeah, I mean,
like that.
And the crazy thing is, Chris, like you said, he's been there since he got hired from Oregon State
That's right.
as Gary Anderson's DC all these years ago and still there. So he's got something cooking.
There will be options. We'll talk about them later. When we come back, we're going to dive into what happened at Northwestern, how the Ducks are looking, and kind of get you ready for that Civil War because, boy, howdy, it's going to be a good one if you're a Duck fan at least. Quack, quack. Chris Burkhardt here with my man Brendan Slaughter. This is your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio, 620. Why, hello there, Rib City, 4 o'clock here. Another beautiful afternoon. Take advantage of it while you can. Summer's wrapping up. We're going to get those cold falls, but enjoy it right now. Plenty of sports to get to. First off, down there where they like to toss their tortillas, Texas Tech grabbed a 45-14 victory over Oregon State. Quite frankly, I think Texas Tech was the favorite to win that thing going in, but I don't think that lightning delay did Oregon State any favors whatsoever. That thing was absolutely unreal. Also, shout out to Mike Parker killing time. You know how hard that is to do? Unbelievable. Up in Northwestern, Oregon, grabbed a 34-14 victory over the Wildcats. They did fall 2 spots in the AP poll, though, because voting is crazy, and both Miami and Georgia picked up impressive ranked wins. In the NFL, tough luck if you're a Bengals fan. Joe Burrow going to be out for 3 months because he's dealing with turf toe. Hour 2 of the drive starts now. Welcome back into the Rip City Drive. Chris Burkhardt here with you today, filling in for Chad Doing. He'll be back with you tomorrow. If you want to join the conversation, 503-248-0620 is the telephone number. You can also go to youtube.com, type in Rip City Radio 620, join the chat there. And as always, Chris J. Burkhardt is the name on social media. And don't forget B_slot. That's where you can send all of your Beaver takes. Because boy, howdy, it's a rough time right now there in Corvallis. Now, football, like I said, it's fun. There's been a lot of it to talk about. And I want to talk about, before we get to Oregon, though, just what's going down in around the NCAA, man, because as we talk about the future of Brent Brennan, like, there are jobs that open up because they don't look at the job that the head coach is doing and like what's going on. I mean, Virginia Tech loses a game. They got rid of their coach the next morning. And he sat there in the press conference and he did kind of the same thing where he doesn't answer the questions and he kind of gives you a little bit of coach speak. And, I know it doesn't show up on the box score and you guys might not see it as much, but I see the team and I see the progress they're making. Yeah, well, they're getting, ran out of their own house by Old Dominion. Game over, my friend. Right? UCLA has expectations there. They moved from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten. They want to do big things. And quite frankly, I think it's ridiculous that UCLA does struggle. They have everything in their backyard, right? Their goal should be every single year to be better than USC, because if you're doing that, you're setting yourself up pretty good. You want to win. You want to win Los Angeles, Brendan.
I mean, I totally agree with you, Chris. I just think it's kind of like what Miami's dealing with. When it's so difficult to get your students to your football game.
Oh, it's brutal.
And
it's brutal.
That's why I even give USC a nod. At least the Coliseum is right there on you. Like, I've looked at it, Chris. I think even without traffic, it's like half an hour from Westwood to pass it. Like, that's no win.
It's a fun drive. And let me tell you what, let's just put it in perspective, right? So if you are going to Oregon State, right, and Reser Stadium is in Eugene or further,
yeah,
and it's a Friday night or a Saturday night, and you're like, yeah, I'll just watch this. I don't really want to deal with 99 traffic.
Look, Chris, just for the sake of argument, let's look at this right now. I love Google Maps. So it is 27.3 miles from Westwood to Pasadena.
That's like 5 hours in LA time.
Do you want to take a gander at what it says for traffic right now?
Right now, I'm going to guess an hour and 18 minutes.
Hour and 31. So, again, for 27.3 miles. I mean, that's like downtown Portland at its worst. So, I mean,
yeah,
I think that's tough. Even, like, I go back to, like, the glory days of, like, oh, gosh, was it, I think, Drew Olson and, like, even further than that, like, Troy Aikman and some of their, I just wonder, kind of like Cal, like, are you ever going to have a dominant, just rowdy fan base at those type of arenas? And I think that's a fair question with UCLA.
Oh, no, it's tough. And especially, I mean, filling out 100,000 people is tough too. And yeah, you got to be on campus. You got to be where you can get to. But I still think if you're UCLA, again, you look at history and you're like, I want to win Los Angeles, right?
It's true.
Your biggest rival is right there in your backyard. I want to win Los Angeles, right? And even if you're not winning, but you're being competitive, you're setting yourself up in a good spot to at least, win games and go to bowls and get to the postseason. But when you start 0-3, when you pay New Mexico, what, $1.25 million or whatever it was to come into your house?
Oh, the memes that showed up on Twitter.
To beat you?
Yeah.
Like, and it's never a good look. Like, you would hate it at Reser. I would hate it at Austin. Wouldn't you hate it if you're inside Reser Stadium and you look up at that brand new, what is it, the west side of it? I know it's oriented weird.
Yeah.
But you look up at that brand new west side and the entire top tier is tarped off with Beaver logos because they can't sell tickets to those seats. I mean, half of the Rose Bowl is tarped off with UCLA logos. Like, it's tough. It's tough. But the whole point is, regardless of how hard it is to get to the Rose Bowl and the stadium not being on campus, which is an entirely extra debate in and of itself.
Oh, sure.
If you have the right coach, the right setup, you can sell UCLA.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this, Chris. When some of my, again, UCLA hasn't been particularly good in my lifetime, but it's odd. I thought they kind of caught lightning in a bottle. I thought they were a fun team when they were coached by Jim Mora, and they had Brent Hundley at quarterback. You had guys like Anthony Barr at linebacker. Like, it wasn't that long ago that UCLA was kind of that 8-9 win team under Jim Mora, and then, to be perfectly honest, it's just kind of backslid. Like, I think they had some moments under Chip. Deshaun Foster is probably a shot and a miss. I mean, that's it happens. But you're right. A program like UCLA with so many resources, and I'll say this: if Oregon State could recruit to some of the things that UCLA has in their own backyard, again, lots of pretty weather, pretty girls, all that kind of stuff, Chris. I mean, I feel like USC and UCLA, maybe Arizona State, kind of recruit themselves if you know what to sell. You know what I mean?
No, I get what you're laying down, man. And so, yeah, you would think that you can find ways to get successful. I mean, you look at 2012, they were 9-5. They were 10-3 in 2013, 10-3 in 2014. So 8-5 in 2015. Those are some of those Jim Mora teams you talk about. And then, so there's ways to get there. The whole point is, even with all the things you say, okay, the stadium works against you, this, and that, they have a certain standard. We're starting to 0-3 and losing to New Mexico at home. Ain't it? And they're like, sorry, we got to cut ties. And sometimes you gotta do that. You gotta make the tough decisions, and rather than just let this thing go. And you gotta get out of your comfort zone. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But you can't just sit there on your hands and expect something to change drastically, right? Sometimes you got to make the move yourself, and that might end up being what happens with Trent Bray. And I want to be completely transparent here. I hope that, Oregon wins the game this weekend, but I would love to see a better product from Oregon State. And I would love Houston to come in and all of a sudden the switch is flipped and they, almost upset the Cougars. And then they go into App State and get a marquee win for the season, in Appalachia, right?
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Yeah. I mean, I as crazy as it sounds, even being at home, I'm not ready. I think that I'd give them probably a 25% chance, but I won't even say right now that I'd wholeheartedly predict them to lose to Houston. I know Houston's good. They beat Colorado. I watched that game too. But, I won't even sit there and say it's off the table. But yeah, I think very realistically, Chris, I was just telling this to one of my coworkers today. The bleeding has to stop by Houston or App State. Yep. If you start 0-6, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Chris. That's even Gary Anderson. It wasn't 0-6. At least he got a win over Portland State.
Right.
Like, I mean, when you're talking over,
that'd be bad.
Woof, man.
That'd be bad.
Just,
now,
oof.
And the reason I want to talk UCLA is not to necessarily talk Oregon State, but you know what? 6 degrees of separation. You could say UCLA used to be in the Pac-12, Oregon State used to play in the Pac-12. Look at that. That's only 2 degrees. But back in 1979, 7 years before I entered this world, a little baby boy was born in Pasadena, California by the name of Jonathan Smith. Now, he went on to be a great quarterback for Oregon State University. And I think this opening at UCLA might get mighty interesting because how tied to Michigan State is Jonathan Smith? If he could be easily pried away from Oregon State, granted, I know there was a lot working against him. It makes sense why he left. I still wholeheartedly believe, had the Pac-12 not completely imploded or had Oregon State locked up a deal with the Big Ten or whatever, that he probably would have stayed, right? But he had to do what was best for him. That made sense. But UCLA at this point is probably dumb if they don't come calling. He's a Pasadena kid who at the time, he left for Michigan State. Like he saw the water, like you said, used the analogy earlier, the ship's taking on water. He saw that the ship, the Pac-12 ship, was taking on a lot of water, and it was about to go up in the air like the Titanic, and he got off quick, right? And he left before the UCLA job and the Washington job were right there for the taking, which were two jobs that I'm pretty sure we said here on the radio at the time, and a lot of people were like, those are two jobs I think Jonathan Smith would have took without thinking twice. Oh, a chance to go to Pasadena and be close to family. Brendan was pointing out he's a mama's boy. Like, oh, yeah, hey, Mom, you can make me. Imagine John selling that. Like, if I'm UCLA, I'm selling that to Jonathan Smith. Yeah. Hey, Jonathan, here's the deal. We're going to put you up. We're going to put Mom's up in a nice little place, too. And guess what? After practice, you're going to get to have Mom's home cooking, bud. Oh, that sounds good. The whole point is I think he would have taken the UCLA job if it was there. I think he definitely would have taken the Washington job there. And I think he would have been a good hire for both those spots. But now UCLA pulled the plug on Deshaun Foster. And this is the thing too, Brendan. I think the time is gone. And that's where this is the argument for Bray. The time is gone in certain situations to say, give him time. Right? Sometimes you got to look at the situation and go, there's no fixing this. We're done. We got to do something here drastic, right? So if you're UCLA, you need to be calling. You need to be calling East Lansing, and you need to get Jonathan Smith on the line, and you need to see what it takes to bring him home.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't know exactly, Chris, what the figures and the buyouts are, but here's my analysis on that. I always thought UCLA would be, even back after Oregon State's 10-win season, I got asked this question, well, what if Jonathan Smith leaves? And I said, the real two that I would have watched out for were Washington, only because I heard he and his wife really liked it up there. Their kids liked it up there. He spent a lot of time on Chris Peterson's staff. I don't know if it's still current information, but at one point they kept a home up there, and it was still kind of like home base for them. So I think there's some familiarity there. That being said, Chris, I don't know if he would take the Washington job over like the UCLA job because I think there's an immense more institutional pressure at Washington than there is UCLA. And you kind of look, he went from Oregon State, a place with not a lot of institutional pressure, to Michigan State, only slightly more institutional pressure from a football perspective. Like, Michigan State's not Michigan when it comes to football, or Ohio State. So as I kind of look at it, and you're like, man, UCLA, probably also not going to be massive institutional pressure. UCLA is kind of known as a basketball school anyway, but have the resources to compete. And again, dare I say, Chris, if you're asking me, and I'm talking to Mrs. Smith and the boys, and their daughter, of course, it's like, you trading those Michigan winners for some UCLA winners? I mean, I'm a fly-by-nighter, and I'd be like, no question, we are going. But I think money is just a number these days, and UCLA could come up with money, no problem. I think this is a call you absolutely have to make because I think Jonathan Smith would be more comfortable recruiting and coaching back on the West Coast.
Not to mention, let's just be frank here. I said earlier that if you're UCLA, you want to win Los Angeles, right? Mm-hmm. However, that's going to be hard to do. That's absolutely going to be hard to do because USC is the historical power, right? And I'm pretty sure most kids growing up in Los Angeles, if they remember Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart, they want to grow up and they want to be USC Trojans, right? But you should be able to play second fiddle in Los Angeles and take USC's leftovers and still go win 8 games a year. Like that is a recruiting hotbed where even if you're getting the guys who aren't the top 25, you're still putting together a pretty good football team, which is why UCLA looks at what Deshaun Foster did and said 0-3 ain't gonna cut it. You should probably 2-1, that's what we want. You're 1-2. Guess what? We'll give you another week. 0-3 with losses to New Mexico. No, but you could go in there if you're Jonathan Smith. You could take that. And guess what? A guy from Pasadena, SoCal kid, he knows how to sell it. Just like a guy who spent a little time in Corvallis knew how to sell Corvallis at the right time. I don't necessarily think that if you look at some of the things he did, whether he was at Washington, his time at Oregon State, and what he started to do at Michigan State, it's not like he's a bad recruiter. I don't think he's the best, but he ain't bad. He can get guys in there. Yeah, I think that's a call UCLA makes. And you start the call with, "Hey, Coach Smith, nice to talk to you. What's the price? What's the price?"
You a family guy, right?
Yep. The check is blank. How many zeros do I need to add? And again, that is the nature of college football, Brendan. Let me tell you what people saying, "Oh, I don't know if he would jump there because he's been there for 2 years." Yeah, he's coaching with kids who leave programs after a year because another university decided to put another zero on the paycheck, right?
There's no such thing as loyalty in college football anymore.
This is the nature of college football. If you're UCLA, you're making that call. Just like if you are Alabama and you decided Kalen DeBoer wasn't the guy, as much as I would hate it and it would stress me out, the first call you're making is Dan Lanning and a former Alabama guy. How many zeros do I need to add? Fortunately, Oregon can match some of those zeros. That is college football. Who's going to be at UCLA? Going to be interesting. Jonathan Smith? Maybe. Make that call. Speaking of Dan Lanning and the Ducks, though, they went into Northwestern, and in that cute little stadium on the water, let me tell you what, they had a dominating victory. And we're going to talk about it next on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Welcome back into the Rip City Drive. Chris Burkhardt here with you, filling in for Chad Doing today. Boss Man will be back here tomorrow. Also, a reminder, we'll be out at the Rip City Rally in Gresham on Friday, so you can head down to Gresham, downtown Gresham out there. Come say hi to Chad, rub some elbows with some Blazer elites, meet a bunch of fans, have some fun, get hyped for the upcoming season. Again, the Rip City Drive will be live out there, so we'll be having some fun. And then on Sunday, down at Pioneer Courthouse Square, fun little reunion, right? A chance to welcome Damian Lillard back to town. He'll be down there. The Blazers will be down there. Fans will be down there. There'll be plenty of stuff for fans to do. Dame will be answering a Q&A, and Chad and I will be down there as well. Chad will be running some special airwaves, right? Special show there on Sunday. I'll be doing some social media for us, having some fun. So come say hi if you see us. But either way, Blazer season right around the corner, and it's going to be a fun one. I don't know if you've been paying attention, though. The social media, Dame's been ramping up that work. He has Blazer fans thinking that he'll be playing this year. I don't think he will. I don't think that's smart. But it's regardless good to see him no boot, taking some shots, having some fun, man. And the vibes are good when Damian Lillard's in town. I said it when it happened, man. Sometimes it's not about the moves or what's going to happen on the court. It's about the impact that move is just going to have having that guy in town. And a lot of good happens when Damian Lillard's wearing your uniform, man. And again, he could have done anywhere. If you would have asked me, Burkhardt, here's $1,000. Where are you putting it? 100% thought Boston was the team. 100%. Sitting there looking, okay, Tatum's going to be out for a little bit with his Achilles injury as well. But guess what? You can sit there, rest those two for a season. Maybe you land a good draft pick. You come back, you have a healthy Dame, a healthy Tatum, and Jaylen Brown next year. Yeah, that's one of the best teams in the East, if not the entire NBA. I thought that's where he's going, but he picked Portland. So it's awesome. So that reunion on Sunday is going to be fun. You know what else was fun was what happened down in Illinois this weekend. Oregon went down to the shores of the Great Lakes, and they picked up a win over Northwestern, 34-14. And this is one of those games, man, as much we've talked about how like Oregon State fan being down bad, this is one that irritates me when it comes to Oregon fan too. Oh, yeah, they didn't play very well. Yeah, why? Because they dominated a football game? Because they were up 34-zip at one point? Not every game is going to end 69-3. I hate to break it to you. Every single game is different. Northwestern had a very, very good game plan to stay with Oregon, and that was milk that clock. It was long drives that took as much time off the clock as possible. They have a very good defensive line. They have a good offensive line. So, like, things were happening for them. Now, again, they're not the best in the conference, but they do have some really good athletes on that team. They have defensive ends who are all conference players. Like, they're going to make you work. Now, you look at the drives that Northwestern had, right? Their first drive, which ended in an interception, it was 6 minutes and 27 seconds, right? 2 drives later, they have a drive that was 4 minutes and 37 seconds. 2 drives later, they have a drive that was 7 minutes and 4 seconds. And guess what? All those drives, you could look at this. One ends in an interception. Minute and 30 seconds ends in a punt. 4 minutes and 30 seconds ends in a punt. 7 minutes ends on turnover on downs. 2 minutes and 30 seconds ends on an interception. They were taking time. And then on the other side of that, I thought Oregon and Dan Lanning played it smart too, because what they weren't going to do is they weren't going to do the whole, okay, we're gonna move super fast and tempo you and score fast and give you the ball back. No, they're like, we're gonna take time too. We're gonna take time too where we can and milk it back because we know we can dominate all the points of attack. So you look at the Oklahoma State game, as I pointed out, the one scoring drive Oklahoma State had was 7 minutes and like 26 seconds. The first 5 touchdown drives Oregon had were a combined 7 minutes and 27 seconds. Right? The exact same time of possession ended with 5 touchdowns, much different drives. But then Oregon comes out here and the first drive, 3.5 minutes, ended in a punt, right? But then 2.5 minutes, 6 minutes, 4.5 minutes. Had a couple quick ones in there as well. 12 seconds on a touchdown, 2 minutes, 22 seconds. That one ended in a touchdown. But they tried to take what Northwestern was doing and use it against them as well. And I thought that was a smart game plan because it worked. What they didn't want to do was Northwestern milks the six minutes. Then you turn around, you score in 30 seconds, giving them the ball, and they milk another 6 minutes. Because if they milk and score, guess what? They're right back in this. You're trying to take a team that's not moving very fast, you're going to eliminate how much time they have on the clock too. Use it against him. It was a smart strategy, and play within yourself and control the game, which again is what I thought Oregon did for this entire game. Dante Moore looked good, 16 of 20. He did have one interception on a throw that was a little ill-advised, a little too much air under it. But other than that, was in control of things. The rushing game continued to be strong. 8 different rushers, 30 attempts for 176 yards. There was no Noah Whittingham. He was out on the injury report. Hill had 5 attempts for 94 yards and a touchdown. Jaden Lamar, 11 attempts, 38 yards. Everyone just, spreading the rock. And that's what you like to see. And then defensively, they did what they needed to do. Uyunglele was everywhere they needed him to be. Defenders were, defensive backfield was locking up passes. There was a couple passes where it was just like, okay, they lost their footing. Maybe there's something going on that turf there. But overall, Oregon did what they needed to do. Now, if you're Dan Lanning, as he said in the post-game press conference, like, yeah, you'd like to win the fourth quarter. He wasn't happy about that. But when they scored those 14 points, your second unit was in, your third unit was in. Now, they need that run, and they need to be able to hold those leads and not let teams score on them too. But you accept it, you understand it, but you also want to find ways to make them better so that doesn't happen, right? And so now they took care of business against a good Northwestern team, not a great Northwestern team, but they like I said, it's not as if Northwestern is untalented. Like Northwestern has more talent on their team right now than Oklahoma State does. And Oklahoma State, you saw what happened. And I think, like I said, I think the number Chad pointed out was that Oklahoma State, whether it be recruits and the transfer portal, had 65 new players they had to acclimate in that program. That's tough for any program. What would Dan Lanning do? 65 new players. What would Kalen DeBoer do in Alabama? 65 new players. That's a lot, man. That is a lot to get up to speed and get going. So Oklahoma State, I get why they're struggling. But Northwestern is one of those teams that they're going to make you work. They play Big Ten football, slow it up, try to beat you with some physicality, and they had some physical plays. But Oregon out-physical them when they need to. 34-14 final score. So again, yeah, it's not 69-3, but it's a dub, and the dub matters, right? And now you look ahead, and you have to play a team in Oregon State who is down bad right now, who needs something to pop for them. But on paper, this should be another just cruise control win. The great part about college football is you can't trust that. You never know what's going to happen. Maybe it's Malik Murphy's coming out party. I know if you're a Beaver fan, you're, like Brendan said, kind of understand what's going to happen in that game. But if you turn around and guess what? You score a couple touchdowns. It's not garbage time touchdowns either. And you put drives together. If you do what Northwestern did, if you have a 6-minute drive and it ends on a turnover on downs, but you were moving the ball and you were doing what you need to do, you can claim those victories, man, because that's where you're at right now. You need those. But it's going to be tough. Dante Moore is going to be able to have a game. The running games are going to have a game. I would love to figure out. I don't know what the reasoning is, but I would love to find ways to get Mekhi Hughes more involved in this offense. I thought he was the gem of the transfer portal. I was so hyped to see him get going, and he has been very lackluster thus far. But the running back has also been running back by committee, which has been really nice to see. I think the running back game right now at Oregon is about as deep as it's ever been. They got guys who can contribute in a myriad of different ways. Like it's nice. It's nice to see. How does Oregon State stop that? That's going to be the question. Because I'll tell you what, you make the mental errors that you've been making over the last 3 games at Oregon, yeah, it's going to be over before it started. You can't afford that. Again, you saw what Oklahoma State did. It was procedural penalty after procedural penalty. False start. You do that, you have bad snaps, you're going to struggle. Now, I'm not dumb. I don't think that Oregon State is completely talentless. I think right now there might be a coaching issue. Brendan and I have talked about that. But I from what I saw at Duke, I don't look at Malik Murphy and think that that's a bad quarterback. I think there's talent there. It's just a matter of figuring it out and unlocking it. And you're not loaded with talent in the backfield and at the wide receiver spot. Like the skill positions, they're good. They're not great. Like I think you might be able to argue on paper, like the Oklahoma State team. I think you might be able to argue on paper that Oregon State's probably a better team But I think overall, you're probably better coached right now with Mike Gundy. Again, there's a lot that working against Oklahoma State, just like there's a lot working against Oregon State. But I think if you can find ways to just move the ball and just get rid of those errors, you'll play good football. I'll tell you this, any coach out there understands sometimes you walk into a game and you are just overmatched and it's not going to be your day. But you can still play good football, right? That team doesn't dictate whether you play bad or not. They'll dictate whether they beat you or not, but you can still play sound football, right? Sound football still might lead to turnovers on downs. It might lead to the occasional interception here. But sound football is not snapping the ball over your punter's head or snapping the ball over your placeholder's head or, just making mental mistakes. Oh, it's a 2 count. So on 1 is when I move, right? And we pick up the false start penalty, right? That's not sound football.
I mean, it's just, and this was one of the questions asked today, Chris. It's almost, because I just got done kind of looking at the whole transcript of the press conference. You almost could have played the whole thing for how many good sound bites were in there beyond just what we played with Bill Oram earlier. But I think, one of the more, fascinating was hearing more about Oregon State's snapping issues. And someone asked today, I forget who it was, might have been Bill, but got to give the credit to whoever did, was like, it seems inconceivable that you couldn't have 2 long snappers on the roster entering the year. And I know Dylan Black, leading long snapper, he's awesome, right? No one could have anticipated that he would have a hand injury after week 1. And then to hear that for basically 2 weeks, Chris, that your backup long snapper, the guy who snapped almost every game for you last year because, unfortunately Dylan Black had a bout with cancer. He beat it and come back and all that great things. You love to hear it. But Jackson Robertson stepped in place of Dylan Black for that last year. Trent Bray said again today, Chris, he's still dealing with the mental yips. I don't know how that's possible some 2-3 weeks later. I mean, what are you working on in practice?
If you're still dealing with the mental yips, then I'm dealing with teaching someone else to be my long snapper.
I don't want to come at a kid. That's not, I don't like to do that. I don't love just to criticize kids that they're working hard in practice.
I'm not either. I'm just saying if you're dealing with the yips right now, then I have to find someone who's not.
Right, and that's why we saw Oregon State throw out their center, Van Wells, after Bray said last week, he's like, he hasn't long snap. He doesn't long snap. And we saw Oregon State snap their punt, and they bring their punter about 10 yards closer because that's as far as they could get that snap from Van Wells. So, again, and their other guy, Will Haverland, the pride of Sheldon High School, is just a redshirt freshman. He's the next guy up long snapping. So it just, it's unfortunate Dylan Black got hurt after he came back, but I don't know. I don't know if I've ever seen a case of somebody kind of being in their own way as much as Robertson has. And again, don't want to bag on a kid, but it's tough.
No, absolutely you don't. But you also need to understand, Brendan, where your strengths and your weaknesses are. And if you're running into a game where your snapper cannot be relied upon to make you get you a good snap, then guess what? You can't rely on your punting game. You can't rely on your special teams game. So when you're at midfield and it's 4th and 5 and you want to punt, it might be worth it to go for it.
Or like we saw, Chris, it even got to a certain point where the best punter was Malik Murphy doing the pooch punts.
Right. Which is going to work sometimes.
Yeah, maybe that's what they have to do. I don't know.
Or throw him in the back that you go for it and you have one guy run that deep route and you know what? I'm going to throw this 50-50 ball and maybe
pass interference, maybe.
No, or bank on the fact you see this happen, especially a lot in college football. Bank on the fact that defender is not sound enough to let an interception hit the ground. And they intercept the ball and flip the field position and it just turns into what would have been a punt anyway.
Right.
Yeah, sorry, Malik. Your stats take a hit, but guess what? That actually helped us in the long run because I got the ball to 5 instead of the 50.
I mean, it's almost just been comical how bad snapping has been. And it's just, I don't think it's going to be something that gets fixed. I mean, it's very clear that, the guy they thought would be there, Robertson, still having some issues. Maybe he gets the mental stuff figured out. Maybe he doesn't. Van Wells clearly doesn't have the distance long snapping. And then, like I said, you're left with Will Haverland, who, again, love seeing a native Oregonian there, the pride of Sheldon High School, but he's young. He hasn't had the experience doing it. Yeah. So, man.
And I only argue for this because as someone who played running back in high school, I was also a long snapper. I know how to do that. Just like Chubbs would say, it's all in the hips.
So how, like, if you were to say on a scale of 1 to 10, Chris, for all the fans out there, because I think there's even a lot of fans, even that have been on Beaver's Edge, who maybe don't quite realize how difficult it is to long snap.
Long snapping is actually...
It's difficult.
It's extremely tough because you think about it this way. Think you're like a quarterback, right? You're like a quarterback, but you're throwing to the receivers upside down, right? You put your head between your legs. You look at that placeholder, or you look at your punter. He's upside down to you. And so you have to get that out of your head. And it is completely different whether you're snapping to a placeholder for a field goal or a placeholder, or a punter, because there's a difference in 10 yards or whatnot. And you're also difference in placement, because for a placeholder, you're coming in, a foot or two off the ground, depending on where they want to catch it, versus where a punter, you're putting it kind of right in his breadbasket like you would with a pass, right?
Right.
So again, all in the hips. You get that ball so to where you can snap it and get a good spin on it, but your hips are going to dictate how much force you get on that football. And you're making a mistake if you're snapping it with your arms, right? It's not a shotgun snap. It's all in those hips, even if it's the field goal one, because with the way things are, the ball needs to get there fast. It needs to be instantaneous so things can go. So that does not get blocked, right? Same with a punt. And it's a lot harder to do a punt snap because you have to work way harder to get that hip drive to get that ball into that punt. Now, I'm not saying I was great at it, because guess what? I wasn't a D1 snapper. Just in high school was I doing some long snap. But I also, again, we ran into a situation similar to what you're talking about, is all of our offensive linemen were hurt. And even though I was a running back, I got put at center. So I was under, old school center's hands, quarterback's hands under your rear, boom, snap. And that's not as simple as just snapping the ball either, because you have to snap the ball with force, but you also need to know where your quarterback likes it. Does your quarterback like getting the laces right into his hand, or does he like it in a spot where he has to adjust it himself? There's so much to it. So again, I'm not saying it's easy to do, but I do think if you have weeks and weeks and weeks, you can take a guy, you can teach him how. If you got a good special teams coach and a guy who wants to learn. And so I do think if you're at this point, Brendan, you look at what's happened over the last few weeks and not trusting the snapper. So if I score a touchdown and I'm Morgan State, I'm just going to go for 2 every time.
Right.
Now, you can sit here and argue, okay, it's a 50-50 chance I'm going to actually get that 2-point conversion, but you're basically banking on a 50-50 chance that the snap's going to get to the placeholder right now.
Right. I think it's in that sense, it's extremely tough. And I'll say this, Chris, we obviously didn't get to continue to watch practices. We only get to watch practices before the season starts, so we don't get to watch practices now. But I'll tell you, it frightens me for what those long snaps look like in practice, Chris, if this is how it's looking like in a game. Because practice is where you make the mistakes. Practice is where you send it over the guy's head. And you're like, okay, we got to dial it down or dial it up. Yeah. And it's still looking this bad. And to your point, Chris, I told you before, I'm not sure quite where I stand on Trent Bray. I still got some faith in him. You mentioned it there. If you have a good special teams coach, I'm fully convinced Oregon State does not have one in Jamie Christian. So
and whether when we talk about the AD needing to make the moves on Trent Bray, well, it's twofold too. Maybe Trent Bray needs to make the moves on his staff, because that staff is a reflection on you. And if that staff ain't getting it done, time to cut bait, man. Time to cut bait. Business decision. It's unfortunate.
It's a business at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Also, Brendan, there are rules in place when it comes to the yips real quick. And this was the hard part when I was long snapping, is don't worry about the block, right? Don't worry about the defensive line. There are rules in place to allow you that time to snap the ball. Don't worry about the block. Worry about the snap. Because if you have a bad snap and a good block, no one's going to care about the block. But if you have a good snap and a bad block, guess what? Ball's probably going through the uprights. All right, we're going to take a break here. When we come back, plenty more sports ball talk on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Welcome back into the Rip City Drive. Chris Burkhardt here with you. Talking a little Oregon State and Oregon football. It's been a fun weekend for all you football junkies out there, and it's still going as the Buccaneers just took a 14-10 lead over the Houston Texans. And what's this I hear, Brendan? We'll have a little Monday Night Football here on the Rip City Radio airwaves once we're done.
Sounds like just after we're done here, we will be carrying the Chargers and the Raiders game.
That's right. Justin Herbies. Have a good game. He's my starting quarterback.
I mean, I'm intrigued for that matchup, Chris. I mean, ever since Pete Carroll went down to Vegas, I've been, definitely intrigued to see what he can do. And I think the Chargers Week 1 win was particularly impressive. Like, yeah, it could be a good game, man.
It should be. And obviously, I like what Harbaugh's doing with Los Angeles. I think that they might be in the best team in that division, especially with the struggles that we're seeing out of Kansas City early on. And obviously, Pete Carroll knows what he's doing. Geno Smith's a very good quarterback to have in that offense. They're not the most talented team in that division, but they're going to find ways to get wins. And you know what? Should be a good game. I saw this tweet earlier. It's just like kind of blows your mind when you think of like how people are connected, and it's just like the coaching rivalry, if you will, between Harbaugh and Carroll, and like how far it goes back. And then you start thinking, you're like, well, it's right. I mean, Harbaugh's at Stanford, Carroll's at USC, and then Harbaugh's at San Francisco, Carroll's in Seattle, now Harbaugh's in Los Angeles, and Carroll's right back in his division. So there they were, coaching in the same college conference, coaching in the same division, and now coaching in the same division again. And then you go back to like Harbaugh's time in the NFL as a player, and it's like when he was a quarterback with the Colts, Carroll was a coach on one of the teams that they played against. So it's just like wild how much you connect with that rivalry as it goes through. And where Harbaugh goes, success seems to follow, and where Pete Carroll goes, success seems to follow. So it'll be interesting to see how that game goes tonight. I'm going with the Chargers because, again, got to go with Justin Herbert, and he's my starter in fantasy, and that's good for me, and I want to see it. But yeah, hopefully be a good game for you here on Rip City Radio. Also, as we were talking about teams and everything out there, Brandon, we were also talking about money. Right? Some teams have it. We were talking about Jonathan Smith, the UCLA, how if you're smart, you're UCLA, and you ask how many zeros needs to be on that check for you to entertain us coming, right? So I find it funny that the one thing that if you're a Duck fan, which I am, that you've had to hear your entire life, Uncle Phil, Uncle Phil, Uncle Phil, right? So I do find it fitting that they decided to roll out an Uncle Phil jersey for this game this weekend. You see that? I know you did, and I know even you got to admit that thing's clean.
It's just one of the things that Oregon State could learn from. It's like, market your school, right? And it's like, I just go back to, like, again, Chris, one of the big criticisms this weekend. It was Texas Tech providing us updates on social media with the weather. Oregon State football just decided not to say anything on social media for a good hour and a half before anything, and you're just like, if a tree falls in the forest kind of a thing. Like, right. Sometimes I understand Oregon State kind of being in their own way and wanting to, kind of do things the, quote, Beaver way. But I go back even to Jonathan Smith's time, and we talked about it on this radio show where it's like Oregon State sometimes doesn't take advantage of opportunities to market themselves and market their program. And it's like, yeah, Chris, if you're a recruit watching today's Trent Bray press conference, how does that market your university?
Well, right. I know if you're a recruit and you see an Uncle Phil inspired football uniform, it's pretty sweet.
Right.
Also, I'm going to tell you what.
Stuff matters.
I'm going to tell you what, as a Duck fan, they're going with the asymmetrical wing this week. So the left side is going to be the traditional duck wing they've had on the helmet for years, and the right side is a different style wing that is styled to represent the Greek goddess Nike. Oh, that should just be the default wing moving forward. It's a thing of beauty. The helmet is made to look like marble. Like, oh my gosh, not Marvel. Marble. Sorry, there's a little tongue twister. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So yeah, when Oregon State comes at you, best thing you could do, Oregon State, right now is to shock the world. You got a few days to reveal your NVIDIA GPU-inspired uniform. Get Jensen on it. See what you can muster up. All right, 2 hours down, 1 hour left. This is the Rip City Drive, and you're home of the Blazers. Rip City Radio, 620. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, and that somewhere is right here in the Rose City, where we are talking college football because it was a weekend full of it. It's so nice to have football back, is it not? Well, for your Beavers, it might not be. They went to Texas Tech, and after a very lengthy lightning delay, ended up falling to the Red Raiders 45-14. As for the other big team here in the state, Oregon went to Northwestern and played in their temporary stadium on the shores of the Great Lakes, and they grabbed a 34-14 victory over Northwestern. And now it's time for the Doesn't Feel Right Civil War in September. I like that in November. But those two get to match up here at Autzen in just a few days. In the NFL, some bad news if you're a Bengals fan, as Joe Burrow will be out for 3 months after he has to have surgery to repair turf toe. Not a good time to be a Bengal. Hour number 3 of the RipCityDrive starts now. Welcome back into the RipCityDrive. Chris Burkhardt here with you, filling in for Chad Doing. He will be back with you tomorrow. And as a quick reminder, he will also be out in Gresham on Friday, where the RipCityDrive will be live on location at the Rip City Rally. So a chance for Blazers fans to get together and get hyped for the upcoming season. And that's not your only chance, because as well, there will be a big reunion get together at Pioneer Courthouse Square on Sunday from noon to 2, a chance for Trailblazers fans to get together and welcome Damian Lillard back to Rip City. Dame will address the crowd and do a question and answer session with some Blazer employees there as well. So it'll be a fun time, plenty of Blazer activities you can do, and Chad will be out there doing a special 2-hour show as well. And I think I'll make my presence known. So get down there, have some fun, and a chance to see the RipCityDrive live on location and get together with a bunch of Blazer fans. That sounds like a good time to me. And again, he'll be back tomorrow. So I know you got people out there missing him. That's what happens. You always get that. They always make you feel good as a host. Like the first response you get half time is like a phone call or like, where's Chad? Well, thanks for listening, first off. And I promise you, he's just taking a break. It's this time of year. Pretty sure the guy pools all his vacation time so he can take Mondays off because he likes to get out to Denver and Arizona State and watch some football. Pretty harsh.
It definitely sounds like he had a good time. I'll have to ask him. Did you? I know you talked to him more recently. Did he do the 2-step? Did he go to the Cardinals game on Sunday too?
I don't know. I'd have to ask him.
Yeah, because he was telling me he was going to Arizona State, but he's like, oh man, we're gonna try to get the Cardinals game too. I'm like, man, that's the Arizona 2-step right there.
Yeah, knowing him, the answer is yes. He probably did. They're next to each other. It's easy breezy. Now, Brendan, we were talking about your Oregon State Beavers a lot. They're a talking point, but I want to talk about the game they played against Texas Tech for a second. How corny, like on a or how awesome. The tortilla toss looks good on TV. Like, where does it rank among your random college football traditions?
Yeah, I mean, pretty random. I'm very apathetic towards Texas Tech. Chris, we look back, Oregon State had played them one time previous to this, 1959. So not much of a history between the two schools, to be honest. I didn't really know much about Tech other than the Mike Leach era. Like, that was when Tech came onto my radar when I was a kid. It's like, oh, wow, look at, and Michael Crabtree and Patrick Mahomes. But success and sustained success, you could almost kind of look at Texas Tech in the modern era, and I say modern era 2000 on, they've kind of been a 7-win team, 8-win team at very most. Now, Chris, and I'm sure you've seen this too, per On3, and On3 is the legit place to go to check out this info, nobody spent more on their roster and had a better overall graded group of recruit or transfers come in this year than Texas Tech, and it was a wide margin. The amount of landman oil money that was being used there in West Texas, they tapped into it.
Yeah, they absolutely have. And you talk about being a model of consistency. I mean, you said they're always good for about 7 wins. You can go back to like 1995. They were 9-3, then 7, 6, couple of things sprinkled in, but never fewer than 6 until they had a 3-year run. 2018 to 20, they went 5, 4, and 4, and then last 4 years 7, 8, 7, 8. Right now they're 3-0, and like you said, they put some money in there. They had a great video on their social media. One of those cool. I'm a fool for them. Some people, they're not their cup of tea, but I am a fool for a good drone video. The one shot all the way. Apparently, Texas Tech has the largest facility in all of college football. That thing is unbelievable. How do you feel, man? Seriously, Texas is wild. Like, if you're a Texas high school recruit, like, how can anyone recruit you when your high school facilities are better than like 75% of the college facilities? And then you get to college, and a lot of those big schools have facilities that are far better than the NFL facilities. Like, football is backwards, man, especially in the state of Texas.
I mean, it's just like you said, the wealth that, and, dare I say, it's, I hate to be that cliche, but it is. There's lots of natural resources and lots of natural resource barons in the state of Texas. And, it's kind of like in, more in the Lubbock area. Yeah. From what I gathered, they were able to connect Coach McGuire with influential boosters who wanted to see progress made. And, it's Texas Tech was never known for a place like that, Chris. I mean, my brother and I were laughing that Cliff Kingsbury, in Patrick Mahomes' last year, got something like 5,000 passing yards out of Patrick Mahomes, a crazy touchdown to interception ratio, and Tech goes 5-7 that year. You're just like, what? So in that respect, I think every team in Texas can be a sleeping giant. You talk about being able to throw a rock and hit talent in like the lowest A system that, Chris, you work for OSAA, you know this. There's probably more football talent in the 1As or 2As of Texas high school football than maybe even what top 5A, 6A here in Oregon produce each year. I mean, you know this. There's not a ton of Division I athletes coming out of the state of Oregon, so it's just different.
Yeah.
I mean, I should say Division I football athletes.
Yeah,
I want to make that clear, of course.
Football in Texas, it's a whole different ballgame, man. Like I said, they got high school stadiums that seat 25,000 people. Like, it's unreal.
And I thought Sherwood was big, Chris.
And it holds like 2,500.
Oh, I know, right?
Yeah,
You're just
I'll take your 2,500. I'll give you 25,000 and a full replay video board.
I mean, respectfully, even like the TV show and the movie Friday Night Lights didn't even do us justice. Even those stadium, you're like, okay, like maybe 5K, like let's crank that up, man.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, that obviously wasn't filmed in Texas. They don't make them that small here. But yeah, I had no idea Texas Tech was the largest single facility, and it is. I mean, it's a beautiful stadium, beautiful spot. And again, you're playing second fiddle. I mean, you're not Texas, and quite frankly, you're not Texas A&M either. But you got to find something to stick to. I mean, and think about that. I just mentioned the two that come to mind, but you got Houston, right? You got
TCU.
You got TCU. You got SMU. Like, it's like the list goes on and on and on. So UTSA now, right? You got
Texas State, future Pac-12 opponent,
right? Texas State isn't Rice a Texas school?
Yes,
am I making that up?
Yep.
You got El Paso, like, I mean, UTEP, right?
Yeah.
So you got. I mean, granted, those are Texas is a huge state, so not all those are clumped in the same spot, but
it is massive.
But the point is, it's just like there's just so much talent there to fill that out. And so, yeah, it's just it is wild. And so it's kind of like we go back to the UCLA thing, like, right? If you're Texas Tech and you're getting the leftovers, if you're getting the Texas and Texas A&M leftovers, you should still be able to put together at least a 7 or 8 win team. And now you take some of those leftovers and you invest heavily in the transfer portal and you bring in a ton of talent. And guess what? Now you have the potential to have a really, really good year. And they will be absolutely tested this weekend against another absolute pillar of consistency in Utah, right? So that's my game of the week. I don't know why College Game Day didn't want to go there. Oh, because Miami versus Florida and an SEC team and the ACC and rivalry. Come on, man. Come on. With the way Florida's playing, Miami's going to destroy him. Or maybe you're banking on a Mario Cristobal-esque game where he always has the one game where you're like, how did they lose that? They Mario'd it. They Cristoballed it. Cristobal. Speaking of that, things are going bad in Oregon State, Brendan, when people are asking me, did the Beavers coug it, or can we just call it Beaver in it now? Like, okay, I get what you're laying down. I mean, I'm sure Washington State fan won't be upset if, couging it's not a thing anymore.
Yeah, I mean, again, you just, this narrative would be so much different, Chris, if they could have, again, in hindsight, it's like, sure, could the Cal game have been one where you just got hoodwinked a little bit? Sure. Did anybody expect you to beat Tech? No. So really, this just comes down to Fresno State at the end of the day, which I think is pretty comical because, and I get why. Because you look at the numbers in that game, Chris, I think Oregon State outgained Fresno by like 150 yards. Like, they dominated every other aspect of the game except for special teams. And then, and then you add on that there's no wins. There's not going to be a win. It's not going to happen this Saturday. I'm not ready to say that Houston's a loss automatically, but it certainly isn't going to change in Autzen this weekend. So you are 0-4. And how do you, Chris, if I had $1 for every Beaver fan that I've seen on social media in the last, 24 hours who have been like, I've got a better way to spend my Saturday. I've got a better, and that hurts me because it's like, of course, you still got to support your team, and that's my other job is consistently providing those experiences. But I think it's just hard. I think it's really hard on the fan base to see this year that I think even in a worst case scenario, Chris, people were expecting a 6-6 campaign out of this year.
Well, we'll see where they go. But I want to get back on track here, man. Tortillas and traditions, okay?
Yes,
Doesn't
of course.
just make you hungry. I'm looking at this list here, some of the best traditions in college football, and the tortilla toss is on there. But, man, college football is just different, man. Obviously, Enter Sandman at Virginia Tech. That's pretty awesome. Clemson and Howard Rock taking the bus from the other side of the stadium is just kind of funny to me. Bunch of dudes in full uniform getting on the bus to drive like, a tenth of a mile around the stadium. But that's cool. Obviously, the Hawkeyes and the wave to the Children's Hospital, that is, sentimentally one of the coolest traditions in college football, right? You can just keep going down the list. Jump around at Wisconsin, that's a good one. Although Shout at Oregon's pretty good too. A lot of these music ones, Bounce House at UCF, Sweet Caroline at Pitt, Sandstorm at South Carolina, those are all good. Obviously, they brought up the tortilla toss. Oh my gosh, there's just so many. Obviously, getting the dot the I, Script Ohio. Shout out to awesome marching bands. College football is just the best. Ralphie running at Colorado. The War Eagle there at Auburn. Again, college football is awesome, dude. College football is awesome. I love college football so much, Brendan.
I'd say it's up there. I mean, again, I guess like you said, we got a little bit off topic. I didn't give you a straight answer. I thought it was unique, but nothing there. I'm like, oh, yeah, I got to experience it. I just remember seeing on social media, everyone's like, Texas Tech's tortillas are wet. It's pouring down rain. So, I mean, you take what it is. But, hey, it's cool for them.
It's like
filled their stadium.
Hey, I wish I had the money to get to Penn. Like the whiteout, seeing that in person. Oh, my gosh. That's going to be such a cool game for Oregon. College football traditions are so weird. Imagine if you went to like a 49er Seahawk game and Seahawk fans were throwing tortillas. Nope, wouldn't see that in the NFL. Too buttoned up.
It's true.
College football.
I couldn't even imagine
college
seeing
football
tortillas.
allows for the crazy, man, and it's absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome. I don't even know where that started though. Like, we're gonna just throw tortillas, have some. And then of course the college football comes in, tries to get rid of it, and they're fining people for storming the field. Nope, storming the field is part of college football. Let it happen. All those rolled ankles are going to sustain the local urgent cares for a few weeks, okay? But storming the field's awesome. Absolutely awesome. I love college football so much. It's the best. Give me college football over the NFL. I'm one of those guys, Brendan. I'm sure you probably are too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super into my fantasy on Sundays, but as you know, I don't have a NFL team. I have players that I like. I root for certain teams in a given year, but I'm definitely a Beaver fan first.
All right. I'll allow it. All right. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to dive back into this situation at Oregon State. Bill Orem wrote a pretty heated article aimed at Trent Bray, and we're going to dive into that a little bit. That and plenty more coming up on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Welcome back into the Rip City Drive. Chris Burkhardt here with you, filling in for Chad Doing today. You can follow me on social at Chris J. Burkhardt. You can also join the conversation with us here. 503-248-0620 is the telephone number. And, of course, you go to youtube.com, type in Rip City Radio, and join the chat there as well. And as I mentioned a few times, reminder that Chad will be live on location Friday down at the Rip City Rally in Gresham. We'll be doing the Rip City Drive down there with a bunch of Blazer fans and representatives from the organization, getting the word out, getting people hyped for the season. And, of course, you'll have a fun time on Sunday as well from noon to 2 when the Blazers take over Pioneer Courthouse Square for a Rip City Rally and a reunion of sorts, welcoming Damian Lillard back to town. That, I think, is going to be awesome and an event that the Blazer fans were going to want to get to if they can get to it. And speaking of the Blazers, before we dive back into football, the crazy part about Monday is we spent the entire time talking about college football, barely touched the NFL. Like, it's just so much to talk about, right? But we got to talk about some news that broke about your Portland Trailblazers real quick. And that is over the weekend, Sean Hyken wrote there at the Rose Garden Report, our Trailblazers Insider. Make sure you follow him at Hyken on social media. But obviously there was a report a month or so ago that the owner of the Carolina Hurricanes, Tom Dundon, had agreed in principle to purchase the Portland Trailblazers. And of course, most people were like, well, you know, he's not worth $4.5 billion. So there's going to be other investors and whatnot. And now there's a report that the Paul G. Allen estate has reached a formal agreement with Tom Dundon to buy the Trailblazers. So it's no longer just Tom Dundon saying, yep, I want to buy them. It's a formal agreement now. So now the wheels are moving on that thing. Most people expecting this deal to be done by the end of the year, right? But it's interesting. So now you got a little more insight to who is involved in all this. So according to our Sean Hyken, the other partners in the deal, in addition to Dundon, are Mark Zaire, co-president of the private equity firm Blue Owl Capital, Sheet Tile, the founder and CEO of the private equity firm Collective Global, and the Chung Family Trust, the co-founders of the Chinese fast food chain Panda Express. So the Panda Express family is now joining the Trailblazers ownership group. That's where a lot of that money is coming from, I would assume. But I also find it interesting because, as I said to Brendan, and I put on social media a few times, can we step up media dining? Can media dining have like at least 1 or 2 games a year where it is Panda Express catered? Does this mean we get a Panda Express in the Moda Center? Like, I want to be able to end the Blazers game day and walk down to the concourse and get some orange chicken because that is the stuff. Can we get an orange chicken deal? Like, every time the Blazers hit 100 points, get a free side of orange chicken with any 2 entree plate at Panda Express. Because I'd be hamming on that right there. Let me tell you what. I love me some Panda. This is the type of stuff we need. If we could get the Blazers game day in the 5th quarter sponsored by Wingstop and or Panda Express, both Brendan and I would be very happy because that's usually where we go. Every once in a while, Brendan will throw in the curveball, and it will be like a Qdoba or a Chipotle, but it's usually Panda or Wingstop.
He knows, man. It's been a year, and Chris still, he's like, we got road games coming up. He's like, Brendan goes out. No, it's true. It's. I was just telling you how much I miss our bonding time, Chris, because just based on the Blazers season ending, you and I being on different wavelength, we haven't worked a ton since the end of Blazer season. But I'll say this, Chris, very excited to hear about the Churns being in the ownership group. Obviously, Peggy, Andrew's wife, is an Oregon State grad, too. I only say that, Chris, because there is a Panda Express in the student MU quad at Oregon State. One thing that I have appreciated, and it saved my bacon many times as I was hungry and on my way to class when I was a student. So where there's a will, there's a way, man. I'm just saying, maybe we take out one of the other, Moda food spots and there's Panda. I mean, it would absolutely be the busiest place in Moda Center. So you'd probably need a couple, but I don't know, Chris. I think something like, not to say that it wasn't good, but we've had McDonald's and the Nuggets for a while now. Right? Like, it's been a good chunk of time. All the players, on 99, they run all the videos on the ribbon board, one more, and at the chicken nuggets. Like, I think it's time, man. Give me like a small side of orange chicken if we hit 100 points, man. I'm game.
Man, all the talk at Oregon State about why Jensen Hung doesn't give you some money. Well, why can't you get the Panda Express family to give you some money? I mean,
It's a great question.
it might be time to rename Reeser Stadium to Panda Express Stadium.
Yeah,
Might be time
I mean,
to rename Moda Center to the Panda Express Center. I'm down.
dare I say, Chris, we've talked a little bit about, Trent Bray. I think some of Oregon State's issues might go higher than that as far as the people who, rub elbows with the decision makers in this world, the people who have money, and you got to know how to cozy up to the cone, if you know what I mean. And I just think sometimes, Oregon State's not as great as they could be because they have rich alumni out there. We just named two people who are worth how much together, Chris?
Well,
an awful lot.
Chung family's estimated around $8 billion. Jensen Hung is worth like $150 billion. To put that in perspective, Phil Knight's worth about $34 billion. Like Jensen could buy Phil Knight's estate.
I think it goes back to the fact that when he was a student, Oregon State I think won like something like 2 games of football in 4 years. So it's like if it wasn't important to him then. Right. And I said this for a while, Chris. No one really knew about who Jensen Huang was until NVIDIA blew up, right? 15 years ago, you'd ask somebody on the street, hey, what do you know about computer chips? They go, oh, Intel Inside, man, right here locally.
Hey, and now NVIDIA owns the GPU space.
Right. And I just wonder if if Oregon State was like, hitting up Jensen Huang in like 2005 when he was building this company, like, hey, we see you're building big things. Why don't you check back in with? Yeah. But I don't think that was late.
I tell you,
missed opportunity.
And Intel's still a thing. I mean, you need a CPU, but when those graphics cards, especially during COVID, NVIDIA was it, and yeah, they took off, and so here he is. And this is why I contend, Brendan, like there is a big uproar when everyone always wants to point to Phil Knight, like, oh, well, if you didn't have Phil Knight money. It's not that you're mad that Oregon has Phil Knight. You're mad that you have a lot of people who are worth more than Phil Knight who don't invest back into the athletics program, and you wish they did, right? And one thing that irritates me, I'm just going to be completely frank about the Phil Knight hate, is it's not as if Phil Knight is a billionaire who just loves Oregon athletics and decided to put money into it. I mean, there is no Nike without the University of Oregon and the foundation there with Bowerman and Phil and everything that happened at historic Hayward Field when Phil Knight was a runner for the Oregon track team, right? Now you can look at all that stuff, and yes, Nike becomes this massive industry, maker of everything from shoes to all this athletic apparel, but it all started in the back of a car, famously breaking a waffle iron to make running shoes in Eugene. Right. And so Phil Knight is not just an investor. Phil Knight is the University of Oregon. Like Phil Knight is on the map for that reason, and they are one and the same. And it's a very, very special, unique relationship. And that is why the Ducks will be wearing special Uncle Phil themed uniforms this weekend. And so that's where I do get a little heated sometimes with the Phil hate. Because again, it's not as if Phil Knight is just a $1 billion investor. Oh yeah, you got nice uniforms because Nike. No, Nike exists because of Phil Knight and the University of Oregon. It's not as if he just invented Nike and is now just giving back to Oregon. There is a mutual respect and a bond and a relationship that goes back decades with each other. And that's special. And I like that. And quite frankly, Brendan, I wish Oregon State had that with some of their mega billionaires, because it's a good feeling. So I can get where people get mad, but don't be jealous. I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying to the collective, right? Because it is nice. But there is something special there. Like the University of Oregon is going to be devastated.
Well, you know what they
when
say.
Phil Knight, is no longer here because that guy's awesome.
I mean, it's true. It's again. I think I mentioned this to you earlier. I'm not the most religious person out there, Chris, but it's like don't covet thy neighbor as it goes, and it's like I've said for a long time, Oregon State and Oregon are even just the last couple of years, they're playing in different leagues and they're competing with different resources, and I think that's why you see like. Is a team like Oregon in the new Pac-12? No. So I think it's like the reality of it is we're a college team. Y'all are a little closer to a pro team. Now, I don't love how college football has gotten monetized,
no.
But it is what it is, and it's like they said, Chris, you get what you get, and you don't throw a fit. That's how I was taught growing up. And it's like, maybe I did throw some fits. It's possible. But, I'm just saying, like, I think Oregon State has to embrace what's the best thing for them. And it's like, it's competing and trying to win the new Pac-12 and having good vibes and still being that kind of blue collar, underdog and all those things. But to your point earlier, to sum it up just so simply, the vibes are just not good. And that's that. Take everything else aside. The vibes just don't look right.
Vibes are a thing. As your former host in the morning would say, big vibes guy. Big vibes guy.
This is true.
And like sometimes you can tell when things are just off. That's where I feel like it's at Oregon State right now. And I don't know what you do. We talked about it a little earlier, man. Like, do you fire coaches, whether it's the head coach? Do you fire assistant coaches? Make Bray, get rid of the special teams coach. Obviously, it's not up to snuff, but it's terrible. And let's play a little audio here real quick, Brendan, for those of you who missed it, because there was a press availability today. And Bill Oram of the Oregonian asked some tough questions. And let me tell you what, I knew this was going to happen because I listened to this presser. I'm like, there are going to be Oregon State fans who are mad at the line of questioning. And Brendan, no sooner did I say that, did Brendan get a text from a fellow Beaver fan like, oh my gosh, those are the stupidest questions. And they're not. I don't think they are. In this situation, someone has to be the guy to ask that question because not a lot of people want to, because it can get awkward. But when your team ended last year, losers of 6 of their last 7 and have now started out 0-3 and are very realistically looking at a 0-4, maybe an 0-5 start, as Brendan alluded, possibly 0-6. I don't care who you are. I mean, yes, Alabama's and Oregon's are a little bit different, but going into play at App State, that's crazy. That's not an easy place to go play, right? So everything is looking like things could get worse before they get better. And again, Bill Oram asked some pretty hard-hitting questions to Trent Bray today. So let's take a listen.
Do you believe you're still the right person to lead this program?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I think for the same reason when I took it over. That's love this place, love this program. I think we got good coaches. We got good players. We got to continue to get better and continue to get the best out of these guys.
When you look at the fact that you guys are at risk of having lost 10 of your last 11 games over the 2 seasons, you're talking about effort. There have been preparedness issues with false starts and the 12-man penalty, and the defense looks like it's taken a step back. How do you reconcile that with what you're talking about with the direction of the program?
Yeah, the penalties are something that's got to get cleaned up. I don't look at what happened on Saturday and judge the whole, when you talk about the defense, because in the first 2 games they were much better than they'd been the year before. So I don't let one game encapsulate who we are.
Why did you choose to stick with Jamie Christian after the Fresno State game and not make?
Well, it's never a good idea to make changes second game of the season. When you talk about who's leading your staff, all those things, it's just not a good idea.
Last one for me. Do you like being a head coach?
Next question.
All right, a couple things there. First off, when he says it's never good to make changes second game of the season, Brendan piped in my ear and he's like, unless you need to. And here's the thing. 3 games into the season, UCLA felt the need to, right? 3 weeks into the season, Virginia Tech just felt a need to, right? They saw the writing on the wall and said, this thing is not working. It is not working. This remote control is not working. I've replaced the batteries. I've charged everything. It's not working. I need to go buy a new remote control. Weird analogy for coaching, but you get what I'm saying.
I do.
You can't just sit there and push the buttons and just keep, let me try the batteries again. Oh, maybe I'm just not pressing it right. Maybe I put, no, guess what? It's shot. It's not going to, no matter how many times you push the power button, it's not going to turn on the TV. It's broken. You need to go buy a new one. So guess what? Never a good idea 2 games in. No, if you are realizing that the guy you hired to go coach your special teams or your offense or be your head coach is not getting the job done, that's the time. There is no time, Brendan. There is no perfect time. It's not as if, oh yeah, the only time that it's acceptable to make this move as a head coach is at the end of the year. We've already gone through our 12-game season and the wheels completely fell off and we damaged everything beyond repair. But we just had to wait until the right time. No. As John Cena would say, the time is now. Now is the time.
I mean, it's just one of those things where, again, you have to go back to what happened in experience, right, Chris? And it's like, talking about, if a change was ever needed to be made at the top, that would come from Scott Barnes, the athletic director. And, as we've talked about, this is something he has had to deal with before. And I just go back to like that season, Oregon State. I don't know, Chris, like you were there. You kind of remember, like, if Oregon State and Gary Anderson didn't mutually agree to part ways, I don't know if they fire him that year, even with how, there were a lot of other aspects that went into it. But, Gary Anderson just kind of walked away. And it's just like, it's not working, respect the kids.
And that's telling, Brendan, because not only was he not getting it done as a coach, there was stuff behind the scenes it was clearly like lack of institutional control, right? Right? You had lost control of this ship. And if you are sitting there defending it, going, no, this thing's going to work itself out. No, it's not. It doesn't pass the smell test. It doesn't pass the eye test. It doesn't pass anything. And you have to be smart enough to get out of that as soon as you can. And again, I do not think, to be clear, even though we have been hard on Oregon State and Trent Bray today, I think Trent Bray would probably admit one-on-one that some of it's deserved to a point because he's the head coach. He chose the profession where you're going to be under the microscope, right? And the team's not performing well. But I do want to point out that I do not think that what Trent Bray is doing and how the team is as bad as it was when Gary Anderson left.
No, I mean,
because that thing was bad. The thing was burned. And not only did it get burned, he left that cupboard bare when he walked out the door.
Yeah. And there were just a whole bunch of other things.
There was.
Behind the scenes, too, as to why things started to implode and, maybe not having a grip on the locker room.
Like I said, a little bit of the lack of institutional control. Yeah. And the stories I've heard, because, again, I'm not there at practice like you are. Now, I was during the Gary Anderson era, and I could tell you that it was not good. Like, the players were turning on him. And I watched it play out from team captains, from players who had been there for 4 years, who were some of the nicest, turn on it because it just wasn't working out. I don't know if that's the case with Bray, but I do think you can fully admit that maybe sometimes a head coach is just in a little bit over their head, right? I want this to work out. I want Trent Bray to turn around. I want Oregon State to be good because you know what? It is much more fun for me to come on radio and talk about, oh my gosh, did you see the game on Saturday? Oregon State with a massive upset win over Texas Tech. That is way more fun to talk about on a Monday.
Oh, I know.
Way more fun.
How do you think I feel? Exactly.
Right? It's way more fun for you to write about.
Yeah.
So just because we're talking about it today doesn't mean we want this thing to get bad. But Brendan has been around that university long enough, and I have been around pro sports and college sports and high school sports long enough to understand when, again, as the great Justin Myers would say, vibes are off. It is clear. How you fix that is one, as Bill said in his article, is in Oregon State's control. What they do next is going to be huge because the longer you stay on it and the longer it doesn't fix, the worse it will get. If you are 0-5 or 0-6, that is bad. And at that point, you might be one of the only teams in college football without a win. Oh, Notre Dame's 0-2. There are two very different 0-2s or two very different 0-3s. Yeah, Notre Dame lost to what? Texas A&M and Miami. Two top 10 teams? Yeah, a little bit different. Might get worse before it gets better, though. Bill asked the hard questions, and we didn't even mention the fact that, do you like being a head coach? Next question. Not going to lie. Probably the worst answer you could have given.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine a more embarrassing answer, especially if you're like anyone in the athletic department. You're like, that's the guy we're paying millions of dollars.
As I told you, that video is circulating. It's picking up steam. But one of the first comments on the video I saw was, I really would have liked to hear the answer to if he liked being a head coach or not. And it is so easy to go, Bill, I love being a head coach. What's going on in the field, it's not what I want. I want us to be better, but I love that I get to wake up every single day, put on the color and the clothes of my alma mater and lead this team. I love it. I wouldn't want to be head coach anywhere else. I want to get through these tough times and lead us to better places. Guess what? You just knocked a home run out of the park, at least a triple, and fans feel good. Got to be a little bit better than next question. But guess what? Next segment, because we got one more left. Don't go anywhere. Plenty more coming up on the Rip City Drive. Welcome back into the Rip City Drive. Chris Burkhardt here with you. We were talking about job security a little bit with Trent Bray, right? And the article Bill Oram wrote. And yeah, it might be very well time to cut bait and see what you need to do there, because it's just not working, right? I mean, you're lost 6 of your last 7 last year and have started the year 0-3. But he's not the only person in the game of football that job security might be a question, right? So let's look at what's going on in the NFL. First off, J.J. McCarthy doesn't look good. He had some absolutely terrible passes in that game. Might have passed Minnesota out of a chance to win that game. I think it's clear that Caleb Williams ain't getting it done in Chicago, a guy who I think is extremely talented, but for some reason is still making boneheaded plays. Oh, by the way, did you see Oregon State catching a stray during college or during NFL
I did
Sunday?
about Caleb Williams. I did.
But I think it was Emmanuel Acho who was like, Caleb Williams needs to realize he's not playing Oregon State, and this is the NFL. You can't do that. And shout out to Beaver fans, because even in the middle of a rough season, all I saw was Beaver fans very quick to point out that the worst game of that year for Caleb Williams was against Oregon State. So you might want to bring up a different team when you mention that there, Mr. Acho. But the point is Caleb Williams hasn't looked good. He was forcing passes, threw a pick where it was just 10 yards beyond the wide receiver, right into the hands of the Detroit Lions defender, right? And J.J. McCarthy had a couple of those against Atlanta as well. So you got some quarterbacks who are struggling. I mean, Minnesota might be sitting here going, okay, well, we should have kept Sam Darnold, because at least Sam Darnold looks competent in Seattle. Chicago's going, oh, we might not have wanted to give up all that draft capital to draft Caleb Williams, because, he hasn't shown the improvement we want him to. So it's not just head coaches that are sitting there with the job security question, right? There's a couple quarterbacks that are, interesting how it's going to play out. Also, when it comes to quarterbacks, could be an interesting weekend in the NFL. If you're a Duck fan, Joe Flacco, if he doesn't go, Dylan Gabriel got a couple drives in late in that game where they were getting absolutely destroyed. But no, maybe Dylan Gabriel gets to start next week. There's also Jaden Daniels is hurt. Right. And so he might not play this week. If that's the case, Marcus Mariota will get the start. You could have 4 former Oregon Ducks starting a quarterback next Sunday in the NFL. That'd be pretty cool.
Talks about, the way they were able to, get quality players in there. And yeah, I mean, I can't deny, like, Justin Herbert looked really good. Bo Nix has looked pretty good. You said Mariota's going to get the start. And
if Daniels can't go, he's the backup.
Yeah. I mean, and then the fourth, sorry.
Dylan Gabriel in Cleveland.
Are they going to move off Joe, or did Joe get hurt?
No, there's just a chance, they pulled him out. I don't think they
I
will.
saw he had the touchdown late. It was a nice throw, man. Again, I'm always, I'll say this, I'm always impartial to seeing a good lefty quarterback, man. Right. It was cool to see.
Speaking of quarterbacks, so did you see the report coming out that Shedeur Sanders didn't want to go to Baltimore in the 5th round because he didn't want to sit behind Lamar Jackson?
Gee, that's such a terrible person to learn behind.
So you go to Cleveland, where you're now sitting behind 50-year-old Joe Flacco and another rookie. Like, are you kidding me?
It's true.
You didn't want to go to Baltimore and sit behind Lamar Jackson and play for a team that is ready-made for your skill set to integrate perfectly into their offense? What are we doing here? The prima donna stuff kills me, man.
And not to mention, like, Lamar is not like a young quarterback. Like, he's semi, but I think he's 28, 29, somewhere in that range. So yeah, you think that would have worked out well. I would assume that he could have beat out Tyler Huntley, who had been their backup for a handful of years. So yeah, I mean, that's a little bit of the Dion effect, and dare I say it, the prima donna effect came.
I mean, it is. I mean, you a former Oregon Duck, Anthony Brown, got a start or two when Lamar was hurt, so you never know. But like Shedeur said, also a guy like that who needs to just be coached up. I mean, Baltimore, a pillar of stability in the NFL. Like, if I'm a quarterback, I want to go to a place who is just stable. Yeah, give me Pittsburgh, give me Baltimore, these places where the coaches, give me San Francisco, where the coach has been there. Things are good. Now I want to go to Cleveland. A bad move by Shedeur. That's all right. You live and you learn. All right, that's going to do it for the show today. Chad will be back tomorrow. And a quick reminder, again, Friday we'll be live on location in Gresham for the Trailblazers Rip City Rally. Sunday as well, Pioneer Courthouse Square. Welcome Dame back to town. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. Put a bow on this one. Mama, I'm coming home. Get dinner ready. I'm hungry. Oh, wait, I got to stop at the store. Daddy's got stuff to do. Rip City. I'll talk to you next time.